We're taping. Okay, so today is Friday the 14th of May, and we're doing the removing fear or eliminating fear process that Saint Germain is going to be so kind to come through and take over my body and give you a whole bunch of information. So without further ado, I'll see you guys when we're done. See, I did bring some peppermint. Woo! That'll take care of my throat.
Like that?
Yeah. Greetings, everybody. We haven't been here for a while in this body. There's some new things that have happened to this body. It's processing lots of toxins right now, so you can let her know that that's the sweating and all that. Anyhow, we're not here for that purpose. We're here for the purpose of you learning about how to eliminate fear. First of all, let's talk about this acronym that, by the way, well, maybe a millennia ago I came up with, but Tony Robbins kind of stole it from me in this millennia. But his acronym that he came out with is fear, false, evidence, appearing, because it always does appear, correct, real. So it is the appearances, if you like, that your mind buys into. It buys into the idea of fear, the idea of lack and limitation. This is all conjoined together into a nice little ball. Yes? Does that make sense? So, I have... And like the little one was saying, and I was asking her not to steal my thunder. She doesn't, but I like to give her a hard time. But I'd like you to voice out, and I'm going to ask each and every one of you to voice out a current issue that's going on in your life, whether it may be lack or fear of some sort, or something that is being outwardly expressed. Does that make sense? Where you physically are having a physical manifestation of it, of what is not working. Not what's working. We want to keep that going. Would you agree? Yes, very good. So we want to keep the good coming in and flowing, and we want to start working on the blockages that one has. Blockages such as, there's some physical blockages. My goodness. Fear of moving forward. Great fear of moving forward. You have created a situation in your life, dear one, where you have lost your way to make an income, and now you've created a physical expression of now being debilitated by it, so that now you could feel sorry for yourself. I'll be quite honest with you. Yes. And in order to clear this, yes, first of all, it happened emotionally. It didn't happen physically. It didn't start with a physical expression. Understand that any physical malady or issue in your body is created out of your thoughts. Yes? And it's sometimes these thoughts are unconscious. They're not conscious. You didn't purposely go, oh, okay, I'm going to hurt my leg so people can feel sorry for me. And I can feel sorry for myself. It's not the case, see. It's the subconscious mind. It's the, let me put it this way, the inner child, yes, the small child inside of you that has the fear for you specifically. So it is not your adult self. It's your small child that when you were very small, you had some very big issues with family members. Yes? Yes. She's like, you'll remember. And that is the part that felt unsupported, that felt like, and that's what's coming up for you now. So we'll work on clearing that for you. Because if you do that, all of a sudden this will start to magically go away. Isn't that interesting? When we have usually the lower back area, for you it's the moving forward because it's your right foot, correct?
Right hand.
And this is the place where you move forward, yes? So, most beings that are going through financial difficulty will have a lower back pain. Right here. And they'll have a hard time getting out of bed. Because the fear is what the pain is down here. And again, that fear is when you have lower back pain, it's a fear of not being able to actually move forward completely. Because if you have your lower back out, you can't get out of bed, correct? So, but let's get back to the basics. So, first, name your fear. Here we're going to go do things backwards. Most teachers that are teaching on this planet are teaching you the reverse because they're what I would call polarized or bipolar, whatever you want to call them. But they're teaching you, actually, that you need to hide your fears. You need to not name them. You need to put them underneath the rug. And you need to not speak of them to anybody. And in the meantime, there you stand on the corner and your child, your little child within you, is screaming in pain and agony about this fear that it has, correct? And wondering how to clear it. Well, and then you tell the child, shh, don't tell anybody. We need to be quiet about this. Well, I'm sorry, you've got it in reverse. Name your fear. If your fear is, I'm afraid to have a heart attack and die, name it. If your fear is, I'm afraid to lose everything and end up homeless, then name it. And then we're going to take it a step further. So first, who would like to volunteer first and name their fear? Very well.
Okay. Intimate relationship, love relationship.
And this is why you crave it so much, correct?
Yes.
Isn't that amazing how that works? So, fear of intimacy. What is intimacy, first of all? In your perspective.
Right.
Yes?
Trusting somebody completely.
So,
Letting your guard down.
yes. So, how do you trust yourself completely, is the question.
I guess I stay one step ahead.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of conniving, isn't it? And yet, you're not wanting to attract that.
Right.
So, we need to work on that a bit. So let's grab that one, yes? Let's say fear of intimacy in relationships in general. What's the worst thing that could happen if you ended up meeting Mr. Wonderful? We won't call him Mr. Right.
Right.
And he ended up being a conniving SOB that got into your heart regardless. What would be the very worst thing that could happen? And then he left you for somebody else. So what's the worst thing that could happen?
Just another disappointment.
Heartbreaking, correct? Okay. Would it kill you?
No, absolutely not.
Would it make you wiser?
Possibly. Or more guarded.
Well, you could either be wiser about it or guarded, you see. This is what we need to work through and unwind for you. Because if you're willing to be vulnerable, nobody can hurt you. It is when you're afraid of being vulnerable that people hurt you.
Okay.
Sounds backwards, yes?
Yeah.
But it's very true how this works, you see. When you're vulnerable and you're not afraid of being hurt, then you become neutral and you can't be hurt. So even if the person were to cheat on you or do a millennia of things, if you stay in that neutral state of loving, and it's difficult for all of you because you have a body, including this being that I come through, then it's a process, you see. But once you overcome this process and you're able to heal it, then you'll have intimacy with yourself and others. And you won't be afraid to be exposed.
Okay.
And be yourself. And it's on them if they can't love you. Because the truth is, you see, I'll give it to you from their perspective. It's not that they're leaving you. It's that they're leaving themselves. And it is that they can't find fulfillment within themselves that they keep on going from nectar, flower, nectar, flower, nectar, flower. Because they cannot find that self-fulfillment. So, when you come to a place of self-love, and when you come to a place where you can be intimate with yourself, because intimacy, it's kind of another acronym of mine, it's into me, see.
That's beautiful.
So, I'd like you to contemplate on that. So, you might want to write that down. And what I'd like you to do is for you, I'm going to give you an exercise that's going to relieve some of this pressure. To look into the mirror. I've given this exercise to others here. And has it worked for you? Yes. Pretty wonderful exercise. You want to look upon your mirror and look upon yourself in front of the mirror, dressed or undressed or however you like, but look into those eyes. Eventually you'll be able to see the divinity within you staring right back at you. When you honor yourself as a divine being, which you are, by the way, you are none other than that, then you will actually see the beauty in you, the love in you, and you'll see the universe in you. And how can you not love that? You see? So when you come to that place of self-fulfillment, then you won't want a relationship. And then the relationship will show up.
Interesting.
Yes. It's those beings, you see, whether it's you're seeking fame, financial abundance, a relationship, I don't care what it is. This universe was designed very miraculously. Once you figure out the key that opens the door, it's all backwards. That's the key. It's backwards. If you feel there is a desire within you, a lack, it's always self-fulfilled. Every single time. When you self-fulfill it, in other words, it comes from your God self, you have the presence of God within you. I cannot put it more plainly than that. Each and every single being that's on this planet and many other planets, many other galaxies, have what I would call the breath of creation. Therefore, you are a creator. You're just waking up now to this fact. So, creator, create your picture of your divineness, of your self-fulfillment, of your self-love. And once you do, this being you've been craving for will fall on your lap, so to speak. In the meantime, you'll be finding lots of frogs to kiss. You've had enough of that, right? So, for you, the work will be to actually work on this exercise of looking in the mirror for the first 5 seconds, because that's pretty much all you'll be able to handle it, because what you'll start to do, and the little one has done this from time to time, and lately she's been doing that. And now that we're going to be doing a liver flush cleanse and all these sort of things for her, she's going to be shedding a ton of weight off, but she looks at her body and goes, ooh! When she's looking in the mirror, her exercise is no different than yours. So remind her, please, to look at herself as divine essence, divinity itself, and not look at the wrinkles, and not look at the fat, and not look at the this and the that and the other. And look at yourselves as actually magnificent, because you are beings. You have these incredible vehicles that are called bodies, which I like to call a body temple. Treat it as your temple, because guess what? It's housing God inside of it. God itself is within it. So, when you look and start gazing in the mirror, and if some of you I know here have done some tantric exercises, yes, where you gaze at your beloved back and forth. And you have this wonderful breathe in and out. And yes, you've been to those. Gaze at yourself. And when you gaze at yourself, imagine that the being that's right there in the mirror is your beloved, is the man of your dreams. And how would you look upon him for the first time? Every time. Not just once. You see, this is what happens with relationships too. They get old and stale because they know that you're with them and you're with them, and you get bored with them, quite honestly, and then all of a sudden you start looking at them going, oh God, and you start looking at all that little, like you do with yourself. See, it's reversed, it's backwards. Whenever you criticize others, remember, they're just a mirror image of how you feel about yourself. You're just projecting. You're like a giant projector on a screen. So if you start to project this image of this divine, wondrous being, because that's what people are attracted to, by the way. Sometimes the little one will do that. So have a wonderful day and go up to Ashland, and all these men are staring at her, and she can't figure out by the life of her if it's the clothes she's wearing, the makeup she's wearing. What the heck is it? It is because she woke up that morning and looked in the mirror, did the gazing exercises, and saw divinity, and is expressing divinity throughout her whole day. That's what beings are attracted to, is the energy. It's not the physical expression of you. The ones that are interested in just the physical, outwardly expression are very shallow. You don't want to deal with those kind of beings, you know. Beauty is only skin deep, and beauty fades with time. The outer physical beauty. The inner physical beauty is far more majestic than the outer. And it just takes an inner eye to be able to see that, and I'm just wanting you to get trained on that. So, worst case scenario, your heart would break. You would be very shielded. Your heart would be closed. What happens to a person that has a closed heart physically? They on their way to a heart attack?
They get sick.
They get very sick. Right, Jeff? He's had first-hand experience, you see. So, you've lost weight, by the way.
Yes.
I can tell, quite a bit. Good job. You'll actually shed more of it. You want to shed it. You want to lose this word. If you're wanting to get rid of your weight permanently, you want to shed it off. And use this vocabulary and instill it in your mind. When you use losing, like the little one lost her keys, well, guess what? She's going to find them. Well, weight's no different. So there went 50 pounds. There they come back. So if you don't want them coming back, use different vocabulary, and programming it into your computer up here will assist you in not bringing that back into your life. Very well. So we're complete with you. Yes? Good. And I'll give you steps. Another person, would you like to voice your fear?
Being
Please.
inadequate and unable to achieve my goals.
Inadequacy. So what happens if you fail? Failing is inadequacy, by the way, or feeling like a failure, yes? So what's the worst thing that could happen? Have you failed before, Carl?
I guess like 1 or 2 times I can remember in the last day.
Oh, this is wonderful. So many beings every day. What's the worst thing that could happen?
Keep working, keep trying.
Is that the very worst thing? What's your biggest fear about this
Having to
subject?
compete for space under a bridge.
Very good. Name that. See, it's very important to name this because now you won't manifest it. She'll be joining you too, she said. You guys would make a lovely pair. Just kidding. Short term.
I'll let him rent my cardboard.
Yes, there you go.
Oh, landlord under the bridge.
I love this. This is getting so fun. So, the little one went through that, by the way. In Las Vegas, she lost everything. She ended up landing with a stranger that took her in, was nice enough to take her into her apartment, and she was couch surfing for 2 months. And her cat was there, and her things were on the side. Finally, she knew she could get herself back together. And it was all about faith, by the way, for her. It was also something she needed to experience because she had a tremendous fear of being homeless. She came from great opulence, you see, financial opulence. She grew up with a very wealthy family. And so her biggest fear was not dying, because she did that at 5, she did it at 14, and she has constantly leaping out of her body. Thank God, because then we can come and do this. So we're very grateful. But that was not her fear. It's not her fear to die. On the contrary, that's easy. And especially if it just happens, it would be even more easy. So her biggest fear, until she liberated herself from it, was to go homeless. So, guess what she needed to do? Not saying you have to experience that, but she certainly needed to have that experience. That physical manifestation of being this far away from being kicked out the door, shall we say. So, what's the very worst thing that could possibly happen if you ended up, and you probably wouldn't end up under the bridge because you have quite a few friends here that would give you a helping hand, but what would be the worst thing if that happened? I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
Your pride.
I'll buy that.
It was her pride too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's your pride that gets the most hurt. And in a way, it's the death of the ego.
Not such a bad thing.
Which is not such a bad thing, is it?
Get the little bugger to submit.
Well, it's an aspect of the ego that gets to submit. Yes, and it does die in that aspect of,
It does have its uses.
oh, wonderful uses. We don't want to kill it at all. We want it to be, but it needs to integrate. You see, this is part of the integration process. So it won't be so stubborn and pig-headed and one-headed and thinking it's the only head and the only being that lives in your body when it's not, you see. So this will humble the ego quite a bit, because the little one, when she was going down to her job in the bus, God forbid she was in a bus. You see, that really humbled her. And then when she started to open up her mind and listen to everybody else in the bus, because she's very telepathic, in case you haven't noticed, all of a sudden, oops, she felt ashamed. Because here she was, had this, oh my goodness, she has a new phone. We won't answer it, but... All right, how do you turn this off? My goodness. Interesting. She has all kinds of devices. Wow. We're wow about that. We don't need those devices where we are. We just send messages telepathically. Anyways, she was listening to everybody in the bus and listening to their misery. And they had much far worse lives than she did. And that's where she found divine grace, on the bus. When you find your divine grace, especially both of you because you're going through this lack and limitation process, and you purify it, and you're grateful for what you do have right now, and you build upon it, baby steps, then more that'll allow for a doorway within you to open and have gratitude for the grace that you do have right now and the good that's right now in your life, so that more can come in instead of being focused on the other end of the spectrum, which is I'm going to end up being kicked out of my house and on the street and loss. Now, if you need to experience that, well, you'll get yourselves back up pretty quick. So I'm not worried about anybody here in this room that they would have a devastating experience, unless they choose that. Remember, it's all a matter of choice. So the worst thing would be is that you live under the bridge, or you live in somebody's house, you couch surf, while you look for a job or something to do so you can put yourself back up on your feet. How bad is that?
It's not the end of the world.
And what do you think it would do to you in terms of your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself and others, and how would you have, would it be a humbling experience?
It would give me a new appreciation for not being there.
And what else would it do for you, Carl?
I could relate to others better.
Yes. So that would give you compassion and grace. Now, would that be so bad to get more compassion, more graceful? So now we can start turning that fear around, you see, because in your mind's eye, now and I'm seeing you're completely shifting. Look at his face. It's gone from a complete fear and panic of, oh God, if this happens, to now it wouldn't be so bad. This is what I want you to do with your fears, by the way, is to look upon them and start writing what's the worst thing that could happen to me and blurt it out. Be brave enough to blurt it out. It's not going to happen, by the way, because this is how you transform it. We just had an actual transformation that was right here in front of you. Thank you for being so willing and so vulnerable.
I needed the lesson.
Yes.
Yeah,
Dear one.
I'm afraid of chaos and being manipulated by beings.
Very well.
By beings.
We'll do you next. We're almost done with Carl.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. So, how do you feel about it now?
Much better.
Is it still a fear that lingers within you,
Yes,
not success?
I've learned some of that. I need to work on my appreciation. It's been pointed out and it's almost sunk in.
So what aspect is not allowing you to sink it in, do you think? Let's just imagine. What would it be?
Ego is still being stubborn.
Okay.
Ego, I almost manifested some tea bags a couple nights ago. I could feel them in the box. The box was no longer empty. They were there. I was going to have some tea.
Yes.
And the ego said, box is empty.
See, little one was like, ego is fighting with her about putting the keys in the trunk and leaving them there because that was her fear today. So remind her when she comes out of trance and she's back here with all of you that they were in her right pocket. And don't let the ego think otherwise, because then when she realizes that, she'll manifest them in the house. That's how it works, you see. So, you need to work on that, Carl. And you need to work on getting to the next part of this process, which is...
I thought you were going to tell me.
That's your job.
The easy way out. Tell me.
No, that would be too easy. So, You're almost there. You truly are. But what part of you wants to experience this experience? Because there is an aspect of you that wants to experience this. Otherwise, you would have overcome it. And our little one was more pig-headed than you, trust me. My God, she had to go experience it.
Well, I thought I was pretty good at just about everything, including that. Done my share of, no, I'm going to do it my way. Which I think the ego is fighting me, but I'm fighting my ego.
Well, that will get both of you nowhere, you see.
Yes.
That will be a losing match for both of you. So which one of you is going to surrender first is the key. So in surrender is your answer. So you might want to jot that down. We'll go to you and then we'll come back to you. So, being manipulated by beings, physical beings such as the little one and people here in this room, or beings that are non-physical bodies.
Okay, I'm afraid of being manipulated by somebody who knows the spiritual war, and also
Voodoo, witchcraft, all that. Theta.
And I feel like sometimes.
And they are attacking you sometimes, yes. What's the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, dear one?
Lots of.
What's the worst thing? Name it.
Hurt me or hurt other people.
Hurt you. Most importantly you, because they are basically you're feeling attacked, correct? Mm-hmm. So how would they hurt you?
I experienced
physically?
I experienced it already.
How?
They put what do you call those psychic attacks. Mm-hmm. Lowered down my self-esteem. I wasn't aware because I didn't know what was happening to me. I let myself. A lot of bad things happened to me.
Yes.
And not just that, other things, violence and
it led to all kinds of fears that you see.
infants that I wasn't aware.
And what did it make you do? Didn't it make you be aware? Wasn't that the positive side of things?
Then I went to another thing, that it cleaned myself. I'm very thankful to you.
Oh.
That feeling that you give me.
Well, we're very thankful to you for allowing that feeling that you give yourself.
I felt a big difference. It was like an open door, of light.
Yes.
And so that changed my concept, but still, I'm not so afraid like before because I learned my lesson. I learned how to know myself more and learn, how to detect things.
Yes. Good.
But still, I'm afraid of chaos.
Oh yes, who isn't afraid of chaos in this room? Please raise your hand. There's not a single being here that's not afraid of chaos.
It's a healthy fear.
It is a healthy fear. That is sort of like if you're standing. Okay, let's take you to the Colorado and let's put you way up there on the mountain, right? Or not on the mountain, and you're looking down at the canyon and you feel like somebody's going to come over and throw you. That's a perfectly normal fear to have. As a matter of fact, if you have this intuition that somebody's going to come and do that, you better move out of the way. Unless you want to die. Which dying is not so bad, by the way. It's overrated, but it's not so bad. I know I did it a few times myself. But you see, if you bring humor into your fear and you see it for what it really is, and you realize that it's just energy, and if you can transmute it into something beautiful and gain the lesson from it. So what is your lesson in this, dear one?
A big lesson. To have more courage. Courage.
Yes, courage.
It's the opposite of fear, if I experience it.
To be fearless, yes.
Right.
And not to worry about what they're going to do to you, you see. Does that make sense? Because the truth is that whatever they try and do to you, they're doing to themselves. And once you realize the power in this, you become an Aikido master. An Aikido master, here comes the energy, and there they go down on the floor. This is what an Aikido master does, you see. So you can become an energetic Aikido master.
Throws out the mean sticks on you.
Exactly. And in my perspective, St. Germain's perspective, they deserve it. They need that lesson. So you can become the Aikido master, and here comes that energy that's going to attack you, right? And you can just go, whoop, there they go down, and the energy goes right back to them. It gets fed to them. Today, I was teaching the little one how powerful the mind is. It's getting so powerful, once you become conscious of it, that you give commands to people while you're driving and they'll listen without you having to. So she's always thinking that it would be great to have. Now she does it telepathically and people move out of the way. Could you please move? And they move immediately. That's how powerful you are. She does it politely now, thank God. Before it was with foul words and everything, so it would get all jumbled.
I hope when somebody flips her off, she doesn't say go to hell.
No, now she waves at them. Nice, and smiles at them. And then they look at her like, she's nuts.
Move out of the way.
And they move out of the way.
Shield.
Aikido.
Yep.
You see, that's that Aikido energy. Become an Aikido master with this. You have total abilities. What you're afraid of is not their power, it's your power. That's what you're afraid of. Is you have such great inner power within you, and you know it, we've talked about this, that other beings attack you because you're afraid of that power. It's not the way you think. It's not because they're intimidated by it. It's because of you're projecting it out on them and they're playing it out for you. Because you're an extremely powerful being. Every single one of you is. You have no idea how powerful you are. You could light up this whole city for the next month with your energy. If you knew how to channel that energy. And you will, soon enough. You'll become what we call superhumans. So, is that fear so terrible? Will it kill you?
Well, I experience so many things, and I know that we don't die. I know there is.
Yes, you're an eternal being.
Right.
True. Well, your body does die.
Yeah.
If you choose.
Right.
Absolutely. If you don't maintain it, you will die. I guarantee you that. So, and there's many books written about me where I talk about different things to do for your body, because it is a body temple, that it needs maintenance, just like an oil change. Well, a gallbladder flush is like an oil change. It's a little bit more painful in humans, but if you get all the gallstones out of your gallbladder and they're not blocking the bile duct, then you can start purifying your blood. That's what the purpose of the liver and the gallbladder is, you see. So you need to suffer a little bit and be nauseous and do all these things to clear it out of your system, and then you're fine, and then don't go back to your old diet. The other thing we're doing with the little one is her diet is drastically changing.
For good or for bad?
For good. Because the vibrational frequency up there is too high. So her diet of eating fish and eating cheese, and I made her eat, I was bad. I was terrible to her. I made her eat this phenomenal omelet, but it made her so sick. Because I wanted a cure of her cheese thing that she had going on. She's cured now. But her vibrational frequency is rising. And when your vibrational frequency rises, you won't be able to eat the same foods. And you will not need to be sustained by flesh. She lives in the 5th dimension. Mount Shasta, Hawaii, and several other places, Tibet, India, places in India are in the 5th dimension already. You go live in the 5th dimension, you're going to have to change your ways. If not, your body is going to be protesting. So, but to get back to you, with your fear, what I'd like you to work on next is your fear of your own inner light, your own inner power. And bringing that forth. Because that beautiful power that you have, because you are a light being and you know it, and you would never cause harm to anybody, will be so magnificent that nobody will be able to touch you in a negative way. That'll be your deflector, your shield. But once you get in touch with that inner fear of how powerful you are and how you can manifest things, bad and good, you'll start to manifest more good than bad. And those so-called bad theta people all of a sudden will disappear from your experience, your physical experience.
Mirror homework.
Yes.
The thing is that, maybe it's just me because my teacher, he's a saint. He won't never ever manipulate or it's just other people, not my instructor, my theta instructor. He's wonderful. It's just other people that are around.
And it would not affect you if you were doing this deflection thing, you see. So you still holding on to they're more powerful than me is completely a farce. You're no lesser or no higher than them, and vice versa. You're all equals on an equal playing field. And they're just wonderful teachers for you right now, wonderful mirrors of the inner power that you have, the inner ability that you have, the inner vulnerability that you have to be the love magnet for them and for yourself, and to deflect it with that love. So when they want to cause you harm and negativity, you send them more love. Instead of giving them the finger, like you said, when she's driving, she's waving at them and smiling at them, you see. And that totally deflects it. Power of the mind is very, very in your thoughts. So when you're having this thought of, UMFO, and you're driving, or you feel that about these beings that are hurting you, they get it on a very subconscious level, but they get it. But if you send them love, no matter what they do, love and light, they'll get that too, and pretty soon they won't have nothing. Nothing can sustain the power of love. Nothing. Not one single thing on this planet. I don't care how brutal or how horrific these beings are, they cannot sustain it. They're craving it so much, they're acting out at the opposite end. They're showing you the villain because they don't feel worthy of any love whatsoever. That's the only reason why people are villainous. They don't feel they're worthy of your love. Yes, you're welcome.
My real fear
Yes.
is similar because I always used to think that I was fear of failure, but I've been working on my ego, getting rid of
Your edging got out?
this, and I think my fear is of success
Yes.
and being misunderstood.
And how about this one, not only being misunderstood, but if you're the bitch on the hill with the big house and the cars and all that, and everybody else is suffering with you down below, well, is that fair? See, that's where it is. It's you owning the place of, and it's not necessarily that you're the bitch on the hill, don't get me wrong, I'm not wanting to insult you at all. But it's a very good analogy because that's how you see it. Because everybody else is suffering, I must suffer too. What good does that do? Absolutely none.
It's not going to help anyone else.
It's not going to help anybody else, and it's not going to help you. And it's not because you create that example at all. It is because of this reason. And I'll give it to you in healing purposes. And there's many healers here in the room, and that's why I'm going to say it this way. If you take somebody else's pain, or if you were going to take somebody who was riddled with cancer and you just took their cancer, do you think that gets rid of their cancer? No. Now you have their problem. Now you're another person with that problem. How does that help the rest of the world? And as a healer, now you've become depleted. So it serves no purpose. So it's the same thing with other beings. Beings choose that experience of not having success for one reason or another. What reason? It's none of your business. It's where you choose to be. So if your fear of success is to succeed and to leave everybody behind and be the lonely woman on the hill, and everybody criticizing you, what's so horrible about that?
Oh, was that a question?
What's so horrible about it? What's the horror in it? What's the part that either makes you feel disgusted with yourself or makes you not want to create success?
I think just the fact that someone may misunderstand you and not think that you
Well, people already misunderstand you.
empathy for them, and
Yes.
yeah, and that being even more exasperated. Feel more than I might feel more alone and separated.
Separation.
Yes.
So the real separation here, the real fear is separation and alone. That is the key. So what would be so horrible? You were born alone, truly you were, and you die alone, so what's so horrible about it? And now you're really alone ever. Are you ever really alone?
Yes, no.
You guess not?
No.
Well, look, I've overtaken this body. We're all around you. There's all kinds of beings here in the room right now. There's all kinds of angelic beings around you at all times, hoping that you'll open up your mind so they can guide you and that you can move aside your ego. Let me give you this blessing that the little one does every morning, and when she doesn't do it, we give her hell for it, literally. We don't let her get away with much, which is a good thing because, well, she's serving as our condo, as she said, or our timeshare. And we want our timeshare to be clean. So, I want you to do this meditation, and this is when I gave it to her. In the morning when you first rise, the first thought in your mind, besides being thankful for your next breath, for having a breath, is to ask your God self to envelop. God self, please envelop my outer self. Your outer self is your ego, by the way. Your God self is that connection to Source, to God itself, that breathes you, that gives you your every breath. So I'll repeat it. So, God self, please envelop. You know how you envelop something? It's a gentle embrace. That's why I use the word envelop. You see? It overtakes you. It's when you have a spiritual experience, and I know each one of you has had a phenomenal experience at one point in your life that you were just like, your knees got weak, yes? You let that happen. You envelop. You allow the God self to envelop your outer self, which is your ego, and you ask the ego to take a step back and allow. So I'll slow down. So you ask your ego to take a step back and allow your God self to direct your every moment. So please, God self, envelop my outer self. Outer self, please take a step back and allow our God self to guide our every moment. Do you want me to repeat that? Okay. God self, please envelop my outer self, my ego, and now you ask the ego, please take a step back and allow my God self, our God self, to guide our every moment. Now, here's what you're going to get from the ego. Well, I want to be the center of attention. Well, I want to be first. Well, and you're going to get all these little excuses, whatever they may be. Well, and then all of a sudden you're going to have to be logical. The ego is very logical, by the way. And if you give it logic, it will step aside. So if you go, well, you know, that last experience we had where we allowed God self to embrace us and we just were flowing with life and everything was coming to us and it was a magnificent experience and so joyous and so wonderful and so and the ego starts going, yeah. And right now we're having a really hard time. We're suffering. You know, money's coming in. You know, we're almost beggars on the street. I'm giving you like different variations, or, you know, I can't pay the rent. Whatever it may be, I can't make my car payment, whatever it is that you are having maladies about or issues about. And then reminded of the good times and where you were when you had a really good financial year or experience or week or whatever it may be. It is when your ego steps to the side and allows your higher self, your God self, to come through and guide you and give you step by step. And each step brings you closer to that wonderful place. So it's very powerful. It's a very powerful confirmation. So that's why I want you to understand it. That if you move to the side, your ego realizes, give it the logic for the reason to move to the side. So what the little one does is, do you remember when we went homeless? And the ego goes, yeah. Was it fun? No, it was horrible. The ego goes like, we didn't have enough food, we didn't have money for supplements, we didn't have, for all the things that we have now, all the toys, we didn't have any of that money for any of that stuff. So all of a sudden the ego goes, and the little one goes, well, do you want to do that again? And the ego goes, oh no. Do you like it? How comfortable we are? How we can? And the ego goes, yeah. And it says, please step. Just step back. I'm not asking you to disappear. You're not asking to obliterate the ego. That's not the purpose of this exercise. On the contrary, it's a partner. It's a dance. So you're asking the ego to just step back and allow the God self to guide your every moment, your every step. If you do this and you practice it, you'll have all kinds of miracles start to unfold in your life. Trust me when I say this. All of a sudden, people out of nowhere will call you and have things for you to do, and healings to do, and things to perform, and photo shoots for you to happen, and massages for you, and all kinds of things will just start to flow. And all of a sudden, here's what happens, and the little one is just learning this, because she just took a step back. She was becoming ungrateful because she was getting used to being comfortable, and that's normal. That's how humans behave, you see. All of a sudden she was like, well, it's just going to flow in matter of fact. And I was like, no. So that's why we got her that fear thing that happened between you and her. We gave her a good, because she needed it. She needed a good smack on the butt, if you like, to appreciate every moment what you have, no matter how grand the moment is, or how little it is. It makes no difference. The appreciation and truly appreciating it and knowing that you got there because your God self directed you there. That is what I want you to gain consciousness of today. If you can leave with this one thing, Jeff, your practice is going to flourish like you would not believe. Because then you won't be thinking, well, I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I have to do this in order to make this happen. That's your ego. And that's part of the fear going, the oh shit moment. Pardon me, but I have to say it's that oh shit moment of, I'm working on this, really working, and I'm doing all these things with Sharon, but nothing's coming from it, and I know it's going to happen, and that's the ego dance. But if you step to the side and go, okay, I'm going to have complete faith in my God self, that it'll lead me to the right place, person, situation, where it all will start to flourish and unfold, and all of a sudden, ta-da! You've got a wonderful orchestra behind you. I want to remind you, because that's what's happening with the little one. She's about to hit the big time. She doesn't even know it. But before she does, she needs to have a couple of humbling experiences. A couple of those aha moments of not letting the ego just to the front of the line and keep it in check. This is what I mean, and there's many books that I've written, by the way, that the little one hasn't read. But in my many books that I've had beings write, and some of the books that I wrote myself when I was, well, in the 1500s. Good luck finding those. They probably burnt them or put them in that underneath the Vatican, underneath 5 vaults.
They were in the Alexandria Library.
There too, but yes. But the ones that I most recently were in the 15th century.
And was Saint Germain your name then?
Yes, that was my name at that time. And yes, I was around for about 300 years and doing these gallbladder flushes and doing these herbs and purifying my body, and
We threw some pretty wild parties too.
We did, actually. I love parties. And I'd also do tricks with people and make water disappear and reappear and all kinds of things. And there's all kinds of stories about me. Yes. I'm a very colorful character. But to get back to this, what happens when somebody reaches that pinnacle of success? You could reach higher, by the way, if you allowed your God self to continue that process. But what happens is the ego comes in and goes, you got me here, thanks, see you later. Move out of the way. And the moment that happens, you go exactly down the toilet. Because your ego, you see, is like the 5-year-old that has no wisdom. No experience of what to do with. You're laughing because this is what just happened to you. So it's quite, and when you can see it in comedy, you'll start to heal.
Yeah.
That's a good sign, by the way. You'll start to heal this lack, limitation, because there's no such thing, by the way. That's just an illusion. But what we did with the little one is we freaked her out and we sent her all this fear. I mean, tons of it. She was in complete panic, and she even went, and she has plenty of money in her bank. Not millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands, but she has more than enough to be able to take care of things, you see. But she was in complete lack and limitation and complete fear, and she hasn't been in that state since she went homeless. Well, we sent her that energy because her ego was getting ahead of the God self, you see, and not being in the flow. She got it. She learned the lesson, and she realized, oh my God, I am not being grateful for the food that I have, for the friends that I have, for everything that I have, for every single little thing, no matter how minuscule. And she realized, oh, I did it just like other people do it. Wow. So you really have to be mindful, and this is one of the things that I wrote in my book. I'll get back to that now. Is I wrote that you must manage your states, emotional states. Your emotional states are what guides, it's your navigational system for your life. And your ego has a lot to do with your emotional states, doesn't it?
Yep.
So if you're able to, and I don't like to say control because it's not about control, it's about managing. It's about if you fall, you pick yourself back up and go, oops, like she did, and realizes, oh, I screwed up. I was not being thankful and grateful for everything that I have and everything that I'm receiving, and more good coming into my life. And even being grateful for the appearance of bad and ugly and all that. You start to be grateful for that. You start to laugh about it. You start to heal it. As long as you're about it, you haven't healed it yet. And you need to move through it. And if you need to do this a bit more, then do it. There's nothing wrong with crying and whining and going through that process, by the way. Nothing, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. You just need to process and complete it. And once you do, you'll see the humor in it. You'll see the light side of that, and you'll go, oh, it's not so bad. I can do this.
I call it getting off the pity party.
There you go. Yes, absolutely. So, shall we continue? Who's next in naming their fear?
I can go next.
Oh, very well. Good job. I was hoping you would, Jeff.
Oh.
We love this man. We're with you more than you know. More times than you know. Yes. So, what's your fear?
My fear is also of success and the failure.
Both.
Yeah,
Yes. So which one pulls you more? Success or failure?
failure.
Failure. And for you, I think the MO with you is failing in front of your mom, your wife, all these people that are counting on you, right?
Yep.
It's the old Jewish guilt. I have to name it for what it is. Because your mom sure ingrained that one in you, and so did your dad. You must be a good provider.
Germain, were you Jewish?
Yes, as a matter of fact. I was a count. Count Saint Germain.
Thank you.
Yes. And actually, I had several homes. One was in Transylvania. Ooh. I joke about that all the time. The other one was in Germany. I was a very prominent person in Germany and in Switzerland. And my family had amassed quite a great, large fortune, which I ended up spending quite quickly.
Not the good times.
It was a lot of fun. And since I became an immortal initially, yes, well, I was able to, with that and my youthfulness, because people could not conceive, you see, that I was like 150 when they could only be 30 or 40 at the latest. In those times, beings would only live to about 40 years old. If you were 50 or 60, you were a very old person. And I looked like I was in my early 20s to them. So, which would be like your mid-30s or 40s to you.
You were your own son then.
Yes. Well, you can all be this, by the way. But long story short, you have the same capabilities. Now, to get back to Jeff, guilt. Well, Jewish people invented it and the Christians perfected it, so how are we going to cure it? I am quite humorous. I love to party. So, what's the very worst thing if you did fail, Jeff? If you lost your condo? We just talked about it a minute ago. What's the very worst thing?
I would be, worst thing that would happen, honestly, I was a condo, we'd have to sleep on my mom's floor.
How humiliating is
Yes.
that? Right? Okay. So humiliation is the bottom line. And it's not so bad that he has to sleep on his mom's floor. My God. She's probably,
She's an excellent cook.
and she'd take great care of you, and
Yeah.
and she would assist you in getting yourself back up on your feet. So.
Doesn't have wireless.
Oh.
Well, that's fine. I would have to set it up for her.
That's right. So that's the very worst thing that could happen. So what would be so bad about that?
You can get free wireless at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Purchase once a month. I've done that.
Yeah.
What's so bad about it? I want you to get to the very worst of it so you can clear it.
Yeah, no, it would be embarrassing.
Embarrassing, yes.
It would
It's
be
humiliation.
failed again.
No.
Notice I had to do that once, right?
And your family, what do? Every time. Whenever you have successes, they're mad at you because they're jealous. Because they wish they were in your feet. That's what happened to the little one. That's why her family turned her back on her when she went homeless. She doesn't realize, but today I was giving her all this information about her sister and how jealous her sister was of her and how she was trying to copy her, imitate her, because she was so jealous of her good fortune. So, your family, I hate to say it, but is one of the worst enemies you'll ever have. They will throw you to the wolves. And when you're down, they're so happy. I was right. I told you so. Correct?
Correct.
That I told you so. Don't do that. So, let me finish with him. So the worst thing that would happen is you'd be humiliated by your wife, you'd be humiliated by your mom, and then you'd be living with her.
Yeah, and my wife would be threatening to leave
And,
me.
oh, good for you.
On it.
That wouldn't be so bad, would it? You'd be free from that nightmare. Your life's sounding better and better to me every day.
St. Germain, were you single?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, you see, when you become immortal, it's kind of tough to be with a one woman, for the rest of your life, because you kind of a lot of them die on you.
Yeah.
Variety.
But there is Lady Portia that I was with for a very long time. So, yes, you're welcome. She was the only one that could match me, so to speak. So, the very worst thing is that you'd get rid of your wife. You'd start a new life. Your mom would help you get back on you always get back on your feet.
Yeah.
You always do. So the grand illusion, right? Because all of you always get back on your feet. It's not like you end up homeless and all of a sudden you're stuck there for an eternity.
Very liberating.
It could be extreme. It is very liberating.
Pain in the neck, though.
It is a pain in the arse.
Yeah.
In the major arse, I agree. I had that same problem when I lost my family's fortune. I did.
Yeah.
That's not written in the books. I gambled it.
Did you lose it?
I did. Well, I didn't lose it. Well, I lost it because then I found it again, you see. That's why, in those kind of circumstances, when you want to shed your weight off, you want to call it shedding because then it won't come back on your body. When you lose a pair of keys or money, always say, I lost it. Because then you have a way to find it, or it has a way to find you. Find its way back to you. So yes, I did lose my family's fortune, and I found it again. Of course, it took me 100 years to figure that one out. But that's the books that you have that are so colored about me, and playing cards and doing tricks, so to speak, if you like. And some of it wasn't trickery. Some of it was actually, I did some manifestations and bewildered kings and queens, and they brought me to their I was sort of their gesture, if you like. But we did some pretty incredible things, and I was wanting to enlighten them more than anything. And we wouldn't have very different conversations to the one we're having now with royalty, to be honest with you. And there was some royalty that was quite divine and very much there for their people. And there was some that I wish I could put them on pig poles. But so be it. They put themselves on pig poles in the end. But anyhow, to get back to it, Jeff, let's name it and let's say that this is what the outcome is going to be. then what? Has your life ended?
No,
Has it been so horrible?
no, unless I stress myself out so much.
Right, unless you give yourself another heart attack and you close your heart. But if you don't close your heart and you go, oh, it's not so bad, I just shut a bunch of unwanted stuff off that I no longer needed, and now I can rebuild my life with the basics and be grateful every day. Now your life will start to bloom. Now I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case. I'd rather you have the other experience, which is to have an imagination experience, if you like, a sort of like played out as in your mind, as opposed to physically playing it out like the little one did, or like you're doing right now. You don't need to do that and go to that extreme.
No.
Unless you choose to. That's the choice is yours. So, and when I look at you and when you say that, there's great fear there, Jeff. So be willing, this is going to sound very outlandish, but be willing to actually go through it. Physically go through it. Because if you're willing to kneel to it right now and say, you know what, I'm willing to be right or wrong about it. I'm willing to right now go move in with my mom and experience this and experience the humility and all that, and the humbleness of it all too, because having humility comes from being embarrassed, correct? Mm-hmm. And then from there comes divine grace. How often have you had divine grace in your life?
A couple of times.
When you came back from the dead.
Yeah.
Yes, so you need to go back to that place instead and be grateful, Jeff, you see. And be grateful that you are losing weight, you are getting healthier, and that you don't need to experience that fear that you're expressing. You don't.
I am grateful that I don't have to go in traffic to a job every morning.
Exactly.
I make my own hours.
Exactly.
My own thing.
That's the best life to have.
Yeah.
And to do what you love. You see, when you start doing things that come from your heart, that you love to do, and you share it with others, let me explain to you how the abundant universe works. I've never done this class. We're going to do a class. It's going to be called the Abundant Universe class, of how abundant the universe is and why you are just as abundant. When you come from a place of allowing your God self to direct your life, because that's what you're asking your ego to step back, your outer self steps back, and your God self takes over, you will find yourself upon a whole bunch of different circumstances that will be of such great benefit to you, and that it'll bring such magnificent abundance that I want you to be prepared for it. Because the only reason why you end up losing it again is because you don't feel you're worthy again. So this is all tied into lack of self-esteem, lack of self-love. So you need to ask yourself, what aspect of me doesn't really love me? What aspect of me doesn't believe that I deserve to have anything I desire in my life? Anything. Name it. It's yours. The only thing that gets in the way of that, and why beings can't manifest $1 million instantly, coming dripping out of the sky, quite literally, because you have the power to do this. You do. You can have gold coins, or if you like, drops pouring from the sky. So, the only reason why you are not able to do that is because there's an aspect of you that doesn't believe in yourself and doesn't believe you can. It's that simple. And there's an aspect of you that quite fears the fact that you have this power. I forget the name of the lady that wrote that beautiful poem about we're not afraid so much of the darkness. What we're afraid of is our inner light.
Marian Williamson.
Marian Williamson did a beautiful job. A beautiful job expressing that. Every single one of you here are not afraid of any dark, because you've had plenty of that in your lives here, yes? Mm-hmm. I know I have. It's kind of fun. It's more fun, though, to have the life in flow. Would you agree?
Yes.
To have constant financial flow coming into your life. It's much more fun to live a life like that and be grateful for it than to have a life of where you're balancing, if you like, and there's about 20 feet that you're going to fall on if you don't keep on that tight rope. Whoa! And down you go. So this is what most beings do in their life. They go like this. Because they get to the pinnacle, two things happen. I'm not worthy enough to receive all this wonderful and continue to receive. And the other thing that happens, besides that I'm not worthy, is the ego gets in the way and says, I can do it better. Move aside, God's self. And the moment that that happens, well, your experiences in your lives, you end up having lack, limitation, loss, so on and so forth. Just like your beloved government is having right now, and so many other governments on the rest of the planet. There's all kinds of countries that are going bankrupt right now. If you didn't know, well, go do some research. Europe is collapsing. You're not far behind. So, and China is also collapsing because, you see, it's all intermingled. Even though they think it's separate currencies, it's separate economies, it's become a global economy. It's been a global economy for the last 15 years, dear ones. Yeah. So if the United States gets affected, China gets affected, Australia gets affected, it all starts to collapse on itself. No different than you. They're just the macrocosm. It's the global consciousness, if you like. But if you start to heal this within yourselves, and it all boils down to self-love and self-worthiness, what will manifest in the outward expression is what we would like to call the golden age. Well, you start to bring in the golden age by your inner expression of allowing, if we have more beings, the more beings we have that are actually allowing their God self to propel them forward in their lives and act on their behalf, the more we'll heal the planet. The more ego-driven, power, money, hungry, I have a bigger castle than you. I have more cars than you. The more the collapse will happen. So, but it starts as a grassroots movement. It does not start with the mongrels at the top that have all the money and power.
We have the power.
Exactly. You just gave them the power. Yes.
Yeah, it's just like a fascination, it's like when you're thirsty in the desert, all these hallucinations that we go through our lives, I mean, we came with nothing, and when we leave, we go. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Like when we arrive.
That's right.
While we live, while we are alive, we're struggling with ourselves, with our doubts, and all the manipulation that we have. At the end, we're not going to take anything.
That's right. So if you start...
didn't took all his mansions.
So if you start acting that way and realize that you don't own anything, you're just the steward of it while you're here, and that it doesn't belong to you and you're just borrowing it, and you start not being attached to it. That's the key. You see, attachment, you hit on a very important point. Thank you. Attachment to outer expression, to your success, to the physical expression of success is what holds you prisoner. And that's the ego. That's the ego bullying its way, if you like, through the china shop going, look at me. The only reason why beings have to do that, look at me, and we have many actors that do that, we have many famous writers, etc. Sharon's one of them. Look at me is because there's so much lack and limitation within themselves that they have to compensate When you have a being that's in one of these situations, and we've had a few, and we had one last time, cannot stop talking while we are giving you this information, it is because she's going, look at me, because she feels like she's nothing. So we look at her with compassion and love. We don't look at her and go, shut up. That's not the point. The point is that we are hoping that she gets a self-realization, that she realizes that quite the contrary, she's everything and she's almighty powerful. And once you start to have that realization within yourselves, then you'll start to realize, wow, you can start to build your life on that God self energy as opposed to the outer self energy. So it won't matter to you if you're successful or not. Right now, the little one, when we tell her that some very big things are about to happen, you know what she tells us? She uses a little bit of a foul mouth, but she says, I don't give a shit. That's what she says to us. I don't give a shit. I don't care about that. That's not why I'm here. And that's exactly and precisely why it's going to happen. It's because she doesn't care. Now, if she cared about it and she was doing everything in her power to get into Oprah and get into all these different places, yes, exactly, that it runs away from you and you can never, you're chasing it after that dream. It's like,
Stop chasing it and allow it to catch you.
Exactly, Carl. And when you don't truly, you are in that neutral place about it, it will manifest instantly. It's that neutrality that brings it forth into physical expression. I'm giving you the keys to manifestation and creation, people. So pay attention. Stop.
Neutrality is what leads the way.
Neutrality is what leads the way into physical manifestation of your desires. Because you no longer desire it. Remember what I said at the beginning of this discourse. I said it's all backwards. What happens when you really, really like a guy or a girl, right? Let's think about when we were teenagers and we really, really liked somebody, and then the next year you came back, because you were off for the summer, and you come back and you look at them and you go, oh, I don't like him so much. And you start seeing all these things about him. And he's the jock, and he's supposed to be the most handsome, most intelligent, blah, blah, blah. And you were about this person the year before, and you come back to school and you look at them for what they really are and you go, ew, I don't like this person so much. All of a sudden they start drooling over you and you have no desire to be with them. You've all had that experience. It's no different with what you are choosing to create in your life with your success. When you run towards what you want with great desire and chasing after it, it runs away from you. When you don't care and you become neutral, it's not caring, it's just you become neutral about it. Either way, you're happy. Either way, you're fulfilled. You are self-fulfilled. That is the key. So if you can be self-fulfilled about what you do, Jeff, and be totally happy when you go do what you do to make money and to keep your head above water, more magical things will start to unfold. But if you start chasing that dream so intensely about you doing your I Ching and your job and how you want to create your spiritual work with you and integrate it all together, and you try the ego way of doing it, it's going to fall on its face. But if you allow the God self to guide it and just allow it to unfold on its own, it'll be a much more magical carpet ride than you would possibly can imagine. And the abundance and support and success that you will receive will be beyond measure, far beyond your dreams or expectations. You see, in the movie that they did about, what was this movie? What was it called? The Secret. My goodness. They left the best parts out. And they had you sit on the chair and imagine that you're in the red Ferrari, driving the red Ferrari, and it has to have the black, inside leather, and it has to have all these details. My goodness. How many of those people created a Ferrari after that movie? I think only the people that did the movie got the Ferrari. And that was the whole plan, by the way. The truth is that beings, you all have that ability to live the life far beyond your expectations and your dreams. But when you stop being so pervasive about it, so invasive about it with your ego, that's when it will start to unfold on itself upon you. And you'll start to receive that life. You'll start to see it expressed in your life. And you'll start to see it's not all going to pop in and you're going to have the castle, okay, overnight. Because baby steps, like I said at the beginning. It's you going on wings of faith. Today, the little one had an appointment. She didn't want to be late. We said, don't worry, ask the angels to take you with the speed of the angels and to just be in that consciousness. And she was listening to Christian music, which she never does. And just being in that energy. And she got there right on time. No traffic whatsoever, and it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She thought it was miraculous. This was here.
It was angel time.
It was angel time. Yes. So you can put yourself in those modes. You see, you have the ability to do that. So stop being so attached to that success outcome. It is not serving you. It's actually hindering you. And what it's bringing up instead of the flow, it's bringing up fears and limitations and you not being willing to surrender to your God self. Your God self has a divine vehicle that is perfect. I have no other words for it, but it's truly perfect in how it actually gives you life. It breathes your every breath. Your autonomic nervous system, you do not have to think about your body's functions. It happens, that's why it's called the autonomic, because it's automatic. It's like an automatic vehicle. This is no different. You manifesting these things that you desire most in your life is no different. If you would allow it to automatically happen. But the ego has to step in and go, me first.
Now, what can I do when the ego does come in?
Be mindful.
Get back there.
Don't. Now, if you go get back there, it's going to fight you. Like the fight that you've been having. Instead, if you do that prayer, if you like, if you do this proclamation and have the realization of, oh, my ego stepped in again. It stepped in front of my, and we're not doing the dance. It's time to do the dance. Have a nice talk with the ego like we said before. I'll repeat it because I know things need to be repeated so you get it. Have a conversation with the ego about, do you remember how we manifested that car? Jeff, for you especially. After the DNA activation, how my car was dying and I didn't have a solution for it, and all of a sudden my mom bought me a car and I didn't even know it. You stepped out of the way. You allowed your God self to direct that into your life. There was no manipulation on the ego's part. You were humble and grateful and thankful, and that's why you received that car. Your success is no different. No different whatsoever. So when the ego does that, go, do you remember that time when my mom, out of the blue, got us the car and you didn't even expect it. You weren't even thinking. You were just happy to be here and happy to, and the ego is going to go, yeah. And then you go, well, do you remember the time when we were laying in the hospital almost dead? Do you want to have a body to play in? Yeah. Well, then you know what? Why don't we let the God self kind of run things for a little while here? Because it's going to do a much better job than you and I are. So are you willing to do that? And you'll get a response from the ego, because the ego will go, shit, I'm going to die or I'm going to be poor. I don't like either of those. So I think I'm going to take a step back and let the big boss run things, run the show. And that's what happens. But you need to be conscious of this thought process in your mind. And you need to feel where the ego is at. Now, some egos are more stubborn than others. And some egos want to physically experience the pain so that you can move through it and realize that it's not so. And that's why I always say, about your biggest fear. What's the biggest, worst thing that can happen to you? And when you really get down to it and you realize that you're an eternal being, you're God itself, it's not so bad. You're like, oh, I guess I can overcome this fear. Does that make sense? Yes? Anybody else want to name their fear? I know you've been waiting, so go ahead.
My fear is to not maintain the success.
Yes. It relates to all that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And now you get the picture, right? So when that fear comes up, what's the worst thing that could happen? You could lose 3, 4 stores. Is that going to be so bad?
We'll be unemploying a lot of people and
Yes.
their families.
Yes. It would affect a lot of people.
But that's your ego.
But that's the ego. Yes. And that's their business, not your business. Because they chose to create it with you and co-create it. You all did it together. So for you to play God with them and take responsibility for their screw-ups, that's where your problem lies, you see. Is that you're putting too much emphasis on you being the person that can provide them this wonderful experience, when the truth is they need to provide it for themselves, and all you are is what I am in front of you. I'm just a catalyst. I'm just a guide, if you like. No more, no less. So if you could just be their guide or be the catalyst for them to be successful, because that really doesn't depend on you, that depends on each individual is responsible for their own success or failure or whatever they need to experience. And you are going to have some beings, because you have a lot of beings that you employ that are into the failure mode and on that failure train and feeling sorry for themselves and going through that whole, and they're not managing their states. And they're not wanting to manage their states. There's some people you're going to find that you just go and you bless them, send them a kiss goodbye, and you go, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get it. And when you do, you're welcome to come back and work here. Like you did with somebody recently, and they shaped up.
Because they really want to be called.
They do, absolutely. Most beings want to be called. Most of you beings come here and you think, oh my God, what did I do? And then you end up going, where's the manual? Where's the manual to operate on this planet? We're lost. I'm giving you the manual. Here it is. Disguised as getting rid of fear class. Which you are, by the way. Your fears will prevent you from meeting your success. Also, your ego is involved in becoming the boss of that. And if you can talk your ego logically into that place of submission and not fight with it and go, because it'll hit you back twice as hard, and then you'll be both, it'll be like a psychotic episode, and we don't want to go experience that. Yes. But if you actually logically, lovingly direct it, and kind of like you're managing a horse, if you like, when you're riding a horse, that horse, especially if it's a gaited horse, my goodness, pretty soon you'll be, and you won't even feel it. You'll be riding for 4 or 5 hours, and you'll come back from riding, and you'll go, wow, what a wonderful, beautiful experience. The ego is no different. You just need to pull in the reins, and it needs to cooperate with you. And when it does, you'll have a magnificent life. And when you start to have that magnificent life, there are things that are going to come up for you, whether it's appreciating it or fear of losing it or whatever it may be. So make heed, pay attention, clear it. So the method is here very simple. Name your fear, verbally express it, or write it down. What's the worst thing after you name your fear? Number 2 is what's the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. The very worst. Imagine the most horrible, worst thing that could possibly happen to you from this fear. Once you've gone to that point and you're really depressed, or you realize, God, what an illusion, and you start laughing like this lady just did about it, yes, and you start going, God, that was so stupid, or so silly, or and you start laughing at yourself. You're just in the process of healing it. Once you do that and you see the humor in what you have created, now the lighter side of things will start to come through, and you'll start to get the divine answer from your God self of why you had to experience this. And when you get the divine answer, which could be grace, which grace is pretty big. Wouldn't anybody agree in this room? To receive grace is pretty huge. It could be divine power. It could be all sorts of different things. And I will tell you this, that your God self will speak to you in the language that you best understand. So you might be driving down the road, and all of a sudden this song will pop up, and tears will start to flow, and you'll feel like the little one does when we come in and she leaves. She feels this sparkly energy all over her body that is so overcome by spirit, and you'll know that is your message. Understand this, that your message will come when you feel overcome by spirit, when you feel like illuminated. And each one of you in this room has had an illuminating experience. So when you have that, know you've gotten your answer and pay attention to it. You've got your divine, there's always, to lower expression of experience, you're always going to have a higher expression. That's going to be your answer to it. So loathing, what's the opposite of loathing?
Loving.
Grace. When you loathe yourself, the opposite, and the beings that really loathe themselves and think they're nothing, and they think they're despicable, and so do they think the rest of the world is, those beings, when they finally move through that loathing into a place of complete and utter self-love, they become the Buddha. Oh yeah. So, myself, St. Francis of Assisi, and many others, initially we started on a very rocky road journey, if you like, where we were looked upon as some pretty horrific, bad people. And in the end, when we completely shifted the energy and transformed it, we were looked upon as, and we are still looked upon as, these very loving divine beings. But we needed to go through this transformation just like you need to. We are no different from any of you. I want you to understand that. When you put us upon a pedestal, then we're going to fall, and so are you. And we are no different than you. We just have a little bit more wisdom and more experience. And it's so funny when we hear the little one telling people, well, I don't only have 1/5 the wisdom that... Baloney. It's quite funny when she says that, and we listen to her and we go, oy, oy, oy. But she says that in humbleness, you see. She's saying that because she is humble about it. And there are many things that we can... That's why we're called enlightened beings, that we can enlighten upon all of you. And there's some things that she doesn't know. There's many things that many of you don't know or haven't become aware of. And we're just here to bring you awareness, if that makes sense. So that was number 3, correct?
What's number 3?
Is getting your divine message
Okay.
of your worst nightmare, of your fear, that you have just now have become neutral about, haven't you? When you start to laugh about being homeless, what have you just done?
Neutral.
You become neutral. You're not pity-partying about it. You're not feeling, humiliated or any of those feelings. You actually think it's hilarious. You think it's a great comedy, and you're still here in a lot. And that's what happened to the little one. She was on the bus, feeling sorry for herself. All of a sudden, she heard all these people crying, and bless you. And all of a sudden, she started laughing about it and going, oh my God, my life is so much better than any of these poor sobs.
then you can't have that, then you don't have that fear.
And then you don't have that fear anymore. Exactly. She completely got rid of her. That's why she was freaked out when she went through that process like a week ago. Because she was like, I thought I completely had cleared this fear about lack and limitation and so forth. Well, she didn't. The aspect that she needed to heal and clear was the one of being humble, being a humble servant and being grateful for everything that she receives. And that's the part that she started to be like, well, the spoiled brat with the gold spoon in her mouth. So she needed a little bit of and she realized that, and she immediately went, oops. And if she wouldn't have, like she used to, that's where she didn't manage her states. See, this is an example of managing your states. When you manage your states, you become conscious of what you've just done, and you're able to rectify. When you're not managing your states and your ego just bullies its way, now it's going to do some other stupid thing and get you into more trouble, right?
Yep.
That's exactly what.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and you're knee-high and poopy. And then you got to pull yourself back out. So the sooner you become fully aware, awake, and conscious and realize that, oop, I took a step back, okay, and you have a little conversation with your ego, logically saying, do you remember that time we were homeless? That's what the little one does. That wasn't very pleasant, was it? And the ego goes, we didn't have any freedoms. We didn't have an opportunity that if you wanted to take a nap at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we could, and we were on the bus. Do you remember? And the ego's like, oh, okay. And it's like a 5-year-old. It's a petulant 5-year-old, the ego. And all you have to do is rein it in. So the moment you do that, and she realized, oh my God, I need to be humble. We need to be humble and allow the God self. And she remembered to start doing this prayer. She forgot to do it. So now she's doing it every morning and at night before she goes to bed. And truly doing it from your heart. So does that answer your question, Jeff? So forget about your success. Process through your failure and the worst thing that could happen. And what's the higher aspect of that? Because there are no failures. So what's the higher aspect of a failure? Of being embarrassed, of all those things.
Learning situation.
Yeah, big lesson, right? And what do lessons give you that no book can give you?
Wisdom.
And that wisdom, what it does is it makes you a wise being. So now, the next time you see it coming, and the ego starts doing this, you're just going to go, let's have a little talk. And you'll take it to the side and remind it, and the ego will go, okay, let the boss run the show. And all of a sudden your life will start to flourish and unfold. And I can't tell you how many times the little one has had this experience recently.
We all have.
Yes. When you allow Spirit to guide you, God, Source within you, you will have a divine experience. And the more you become an example on the planet for others, a living, breathing example, the more you'll be able to transform your planet into the golden age, into the golden cities that we're hoping to bring back in. But you are the key to this golden age by your example. So, don't worry about your businesses. Don't worry about going homeless. What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, you'll be under a bridge for a week. You'll get over it. You'll go get a job. You'll, pick yourself back up. You'll live in a little apartment, or you'll be living somewhere for a little while. And there's a great movie, by the way. We forget the name of it. Black actor. Ended up.
Shelter?
No, actually, he's a very well-known stock market person now. And you know which movie? Will Smith, yes, you know the movie.
With his little boy.
With his little boy, yes. It's a wonderful movie to watch. I forgot the name of it. The little one watched it, and it's heart-wrenching. But it's a wonderful movie because it shows you how he had this dream. This wife didn't believe in him. Wife left him with the kid. They ended up going homeless and going with the kid from shelter to shelter. And having the kid have to stay in shelters and with different people. And he made it to the top because he believed in himself and loved himself enough to do it. So it's a wonderful movie for you to watch and see. Because this is a true story. And this could be your story as well. But it wasn't until he was able to be humbled and let go and allow that he became this great person in the stock market.
Can I reiterate, though, that we can just visually go through the experience?
Absolutely.
We don't have to.
You don't have to physically experience it. Absolutely. The ones that physically experience are very pig-headed. We're calling the little one very pig-headed. You know, she is very pig-headed sometimes. Now she's not like she used to,
We all
by no
are.
means, but she could be very pig-headed. And pig-headed means that you're very stubborn and you're just going to do it one way. And it doesn't matter how many times you get clobbered on the head, you keep going in that direction.
Instead of calling it pig-headed, you should call it human-headed.
Human-headed, yes. So that was number 3. Number 4, when you know what your divine message is, when you get your divine message, it'll be either in a book or in a song or in a movie, or somebody will walk by and all of a sudden it'll make you shiver, by the way. Not in a bad way, in a good way. It'll make your vibration frequency go through the roof. Like when you get the God bumps, as I like to call them, that are like magnanimous God bumps. Know that this is your divine truth that your God self has brought into your consciousness. Write it down. Pay attention to it, because this is what's going to transform this fear, or so-called false evidence appearing real, or the illusion of what you were about to create, into your greatest ally, into your greatest friend. And when you do that and you realize that, you'll be able to flow with it and just allow. And then the God self will really be able to take the ship and run it to wherever you want it to go. So those are the 4 basic steps. Got it?
Thank you.
Yeah? Thank you. Very good. Anybody else want to share their fears before we go? Yes?
Mine's more physical. Fear of my eye infection.
Not clearing and healing.
Right, I'm on a medication and it does seem like it's getting better.
Yes.
So I have a fear that
Yes.
it
And
won't.
you see, your fear of it not getting better will cause it to not get better. So what's the worst thing that could happen to you? Let's take it to the worst umpteen level, which would be you become blind. What happens when you become blind?
Well, I still have the other car.
Somebody will have to drive you to and from, right? You'll have to learn how to navigate within your apartment or your house. You'll become, well, what's one of the things that people absolutely cannot stand in this society is dependency, correct?
Helplessness.
There's a lesson here, and there's a high lesson for you here, and this is why you have this issue with your eye and the eye infection. And that is that you don't like to be dependent. You're very independent. So what would be so horrible about you being dependent? Because I'm telling you right now that there's beings that are blind that are magnificent, and magnificent healers. Because now they're using their inner eye. Because that eye will never go blind. And it's far more powerful than these two. So what would be the very worst thing that could happen? That you would become very dependent, and then what? I want to take it to the umpteenth level, understand why. Because then you'll be able to be neutral about it, and this will go away instantly.
Just visualize the worst, so that you can feel it, experience it, and let it go.
Correct. You don't have to actually physically experience it, and that's not what I desire for you at all. And as a matter of fact, you're very resilient, so your eyes will get better. But I want you to just, for a moment,
It's just my left eye, and I have actually gotten better with allowing people to help me or
yes.
do for me instead of me always doing it.
So what's so bad about that? You see, there's a flow in the universe of giving and receiving, and you're the giver. And your eyes are teaching you how to receive. And there's a balance. And the reason why I came to you, especially when she was missing $10, and it wasn't just about the integrity of the thing. It was about the flow of the thing. It's about when you give, and that's why when the little one gives, she receives, and vice versa. When she has other healers that she works with, and other people that do work for her, you see. And I've taught her, and she's learned it quite well, to have a well-rounded balance about boundaries, about when you give, you get to receive something in return. If not, the cycle is incomplete. And your cycle is incomplete.
It's kind of like my cycle. I've just been getting an epiphany is that I've had to be very helpless, and I've had to depend on other people. And what it is if you don't let someone help you, you're denying them of that.
And you're not completing the circle of you giving. Always in giving, there should be receiving. The universe works that way. It's a universal law. That this is why your God being and God itself is always giving. Because it's always receiving. So if you look at your pocketbook that way and not worry about outflow, because if you start worrying about outflow, then the inflow will stop coming through. You see? But if you're in the outflow, you say, thank you, God, for my abundance. Thank you, God self and ego self, for stepping to the side and allowing for my abundance to come into my life. Whether it's people helping you, or whether it's clients paying you for your services, or whatever it may be. There has to be that flow. It completes the circle. Otherwise, the circle is half broken. And anytime there's energy that's half broken, then you're half broken. And then you collapse.
And the wheel's lopsided.
Yeah. And the world's kind of lopsided right now because of that, you see.
Yeah.
So your lesson is to allow. So when somebody pays you a compliment, or when somebody wants to help you, say thank you. I really appreciate it. I know that's a difficult one for healers. The little one had a really hard time with that one. But we told her, you're walking around like this. And it doesn't work. And we won't come through you if you don't balance it out. Now you're right. We don't need the money at all. And it's a lesson for her. Yes, of balance and putting boundaries, establishing boundaries, and keeping her word and having others keep their word and their honorability. And when somebody wants to give something to you, especially in the Latin culture, and you deny them, that's an insult, by the way. So make sure you say, thank you. What part of you doesn't believe it's worthy enough to receive? That's what you're saying to the universe. I'll give you another thing, another clue. When you get pennies on the street you get to pick up, and you pick them up and you go, thank you for my abundance, and you put it in your pocket, and you're truly grateful, you're about to get a ton of money coming into your life with that one penny. And it's not about the penny or the quantity that you found. It's about the intention that you have. And your dear spirit that goes, God self, take care of me. I have faith. I know that this one penny is kind of like a mustard seed. It's going to grow into a big, huge plant that's going to have lots and lots and lots of seeds in it. No different is this experience for you.
And
So,
you have to allow other people to help you.
yes.
If not, then you can't.
Well, the cycle's broken. Yes, of course. The cycle's broken. So anytime beings give things to the little one, dresses, boxes, pictures, she's grateful. And when she's not, we hit her over the head and go, mind yourself. Be grateful. This is energy. This is the universe coming into your life and saying, here's this abundance in a different form. And it might not be in these paper bills. It might be in a different form, but be grateful for it. Because what you're saying to the universe is, no, thank you. I have enough. And when you do that, all of a sudden the universe goes, whoop, and puts their attention right there with this being that says, yes, thank you. Or this being, or this being. So start allowing for people to help you and to support you. And yes, I know with some people, you will find, not all, few, will have strings attached.
And that is why.
And that is why you have this issue. So you have to make it very clear to them. If there's strings attached to you helping me, I am not interested. If you're doing it out of your heart, just because you want to and you desire to, and there's no strings attached, I'm more than happy to receive. So you're establishing a boundary, aren't you? So with those beings that you know are doing that string attachment, that control thing, you can say no thank you. And you can say no thank you to them being in your life because they're serving no purpose. But for those beings that give freely, just because they're grateful that you're in their life.
But sometimes I don't think they're doing it freely. They're doing it because they feel like they have to.
That's a self-worth.
That's a self-worth thing. That is definitely not... that's
Because I feel like they have to reciprocate because I did something for them, so...
And ask them. Be authentic with them. They won't mind if you say, are you doing this because I did this for you? And if they say yes...
Do you think most people would say
No.
yes? I mean, do you think they'd say no
I-
if they want to, but even if they really...
There are some people that would say yes. And what's wrong with that? You know, you helped me out when I was moving out of my house, and I want to help you. I want to return the favor. What's so bad with that?
It's the exchange of energy.
It's an exchange of energy. They're trying to balance out the energy, aren't they? That's the key. Now, that's somebody that has pure, loving intentions for you. Now, I'll explain what I mean by strings attached. If I help her, that means she owes me. And when I have, let's use the example of moving, okay? They're helping you pack or they're helping you move. So the next time I have to move, I know who I'm going to call, and I'm going to let her know that I helped her move. And if she doesn't help me, well, shame on her.
The Godfather.
I just receive, I receive quite a bit of that sometimes, you see. So, understand that you'll start to gain energetically where people are at. And if that's their intent, you don't need them in your life. True friends help each other. If Rebecca called Sonia and said, Sonia, I need this or that, she would be here in a heartbeat. She wouldn't even think about it twice. Same thing for any of you, you see. And she wouldn't think of it as like, okay, now, you know what? I've got 10 people that I've done favors for, so now those 10 people owe me these 10. She doesn't think that way, because that's not the way the universe flows.
Love doesn't keep score.
And flow doesn't keep score either.
And you can pay it forward.
And it can come through another being completely, and it will. And you can pay it forward to another being that had nothing to do with this circle of beings here. So what's so wrong with that?
Pay It Forward's a good movie.
Oh, that's a great movie.
It is a good movie. In the end, the poor child sacrificed himself so the adults could get their lesson. But understand that there's nothing wrong with that. And when there are beings that have strings attached, you can confront them and say, are you doing this because then I'm going to owe you? Because if it comes from that intent, I'm not interested in your assistance.
But it's okay with the string attached as long as it's upfront when you're bartering with somebody.
Of course. If there's an agreement there for a trade, that's an equal energy exchange, isn't it?
That's the key.
That is the key, that there's an equal energy exchange and that there's a balance and that you both feel good about it. If I may be so bold, I'm going to express what happened earlier with the little one and this being. And I asked the little one to just allow her to be here because what she had to trade with the little one wasn't something the little one's interested. So what the little one's going to do is she's going to give it away as gifts. Isn't that wonderful? So it's an equal energy exchange regardless. It might not be something that she likes, but she might find somebody else that she really loves and cares about that's going to look at them and go, oh my God, they're incredible, and she's going to feel so good to give it to them. And there's an equal energy exchange. So it's in many different forms. And it comes, and when you're open like that, it allows for many blessings to come through and flow. Now you're in the flow. Does that make sense? Whereas if she would have gone push, push, and then she was just, no, you can't be here. That would have been bad karma on her. But I had a little conversation with her before. And said, if you don't appreciate those things, then give them to somebody that does. And allow her to be here. Because she needs this right now, and you'll get it back. The universe always does. Provides. When you're in the flow, that's how you'll feel about things. You won't be so like, well, this person didn't do that. Or, unless they actually verbally say something, then you need to call them on it. If they don't, then fine. So yes, it's all about flow. Anybody else want to? We done? We'll complete with you on Sunday. I might come back. We'll have a private. Yes. Brian, would you like to share? Or you good?
Might as well. One of my fears is rejection.
Yes. Doesn't everybody here have that fear?
Yeah.
Thanks for voicing it for all of us. I was such a clown in the 15th century because I was afraid of rejection. So that's why I was like very colorful character. And I was like, see me. That was part of my ascension, by the way, process. So what's the worst thing that can happen if you get rejected? And you've gotten rejected a lot in your lifetime. We all have, haven't we? So what's the worst thing that can happen, Brian? And especially by somebody that you have a crush on or that you really want to go out with or etc. Because that's what we're going to, is the heart of the matter. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
I get rejected and I feel bad. And
Embarrassed.
It makes me feel, it's like not really a spiral, but it kind of reinforces.
Yeah, your low self-esteem, correct? Like